Et puis, la fin du forçat. Ces enterrements que je décris dans mon livre, où l'on jette ce corps entouré de sacs de farine, en pâture aux requins des îles royales, qui, il faut bien le dire, était ni plus ni moins que le dernier moment où le forçat arrivait à sa limite.
You've heard the voice of a man whose novel was a hit in the 1960s. Shortly thereafter, the author of the book himself, someone named Henri Charrière, gained impressive fame. But who was he and what the story told in his book was related to? Henri Charrière was born in 1906 in the south of France. At the age of 17, he went to serve in the French Navy, but soon after he hated the service and left it at the first opportunity. Henri entered the path of crime and became known by the nickname Papillon, which means moth, because he had a butterfly tattoo on his chest. Later, Charrière was convicted on October 26, 1931 of the murder of a pimp named Roland Le Petit, a charge that he strenuously denied. He was sentenced to life in prison and 10 years of hard labor. After a brief imprisonment at the transit prison of Beaulieu in Caen, France, he was transported in 1933 to the prison of St-Laurent-du-Maroni on the Maroni River in the penal settlement of mainland French Guiana. French Guiana, one of the hottest and the wettest places in the world. Natural moist evergreen tropical forests cover 3/4 of the country. In the coastal zone is a low-lying and swampy area. The middle of the 19th century was marked for French Guiana by 3 important events: the abolition of slavery in 1848, the transformation of the territory into a place of exile since 1852, and the discovery of gold deposits in 1855. You probably watched the movie about this event. It named 600 kilograms of gold. Generally, at that time the French authorities sent to hard labor on such a long voyage exclusively political prisoners, who posed a real threat not only to society, but also to the state. However, why Charrière ended up in Guiana is truly a mystery. As you can see in a film and in a book, Henri Charrière had no intentions of staying confined. And the sequence of daring prison escapes that would ultimately make him famous was about to begin. Henri broke out of Isle Royale for the first time after 3 years in captivity. However, several escape attempts were doomed to fail. When Charrière moved on once again, French authorities finally caught up to him again. After regaining his sanity, Charrière requested to be transferred to Devil's Island. Authorities were happy to oblige because Devil's Island was said to be inescapable. The island didn't have much security because it didn't need to. One commandant warned against prisoners who thought of escape.
We have 2 guardians: the jungle and the sea. If you don't get eaten by sharks or your bones picked clean by ants, you will soon beg to return. Then you will be severely punished. You will get locked up in solitary. The first attempt will get you 2 years. The second attempt will get you 5.
Undaunted, however, Henri wanted a way out. He'd already survived living in the jungle, and he figured that he could do it again. In preliminary preparation for his escape, Charrière observed that the waves rolled in a particular succession. Every 7th wave appeared much larger and stronger than the others, and the 7th wave might be enough to push him far away from the island and into the deep ocean. After several experiments with weighted-down sacks of coconuts, he named the 7th wave Lisette after the little girl he risked his life to save. Charrière convinced Sylvain, a fellow convict, to accompany him on his escape. He and Sylvain spent 4 days and 3 nights adrift in the sea, floating on coconut-filled bags and surviving on grated coconut pulp. Sylvain prematurely left his raft and sank into mudflats quicksands, disappearing as the waves washed over his softening trap. He was a mere 300 yards from the mainland. Henri waited until the waves pushed his raft to solid shoreline. Having reached the mainland, Charrière came in contact with elder Chinese known as Kiwik, made known to him before he escaped Devil's Island by Kiwik's brother, Chan. Charrière joined Kiwik in his refuge, and together they escaped by boat to Georgetown. In 1945, he landed in Venezuela where he settled down, married, and even earned citizenship, allowing the next chapter of his life to begin. However, there is another version of his life. He left the citadel of Saint-Martin-de-Ré on September 29, 1933 aboard the Martiniere and landed on October 14 with the status of transported to St-Laurent-du-Maroni. There was little time left in the transportation camp, as he was assigned as a nursing assistant to the André Bouron Colonial Hospital, where he saw many inmates returning from the run who told him their escape stories, from which he drew inspiration. This place spared him from the work of logging sites or agricultural concessions that annihilated convicts in a few months. He escaped for the first time on September 5, 1934, but failed in Colombia, a country that returned escaped convicts to France. Judged by the Special Maritime Court, he spent 2 years in the cells of the St. Joseph's Island seclusion. Several times transferred, he ended up as chief nurse in an Indo-Chinese camp on the Guyanese mainland, the Cascades Forest Camp, from which he escaped on the night from March 18 to March 19, 1944, along with 4 companions. After the releasing of the book, in 1969, he was subsequently treated as a minor celebrity, even being invited frequently to appear on local television programs. Of course, the book was a massive success in France, and even not only, because no one has done anything before. Despite some blunders, it contains a kind of collective image and romanticizes the prisoners of that time who arrived in the overseas territories of France. The book and movie both present Devil's Island as having rocky cliffs, when, in fact, although the entire island is rocky, it gently slopes into the surrounding sea. A French Justice Ministry report said Charrière's book included episodes that were imagined or involved others and should be divided by at least 10 to get near the truth. Most of critics agree to each other that Charrière, having a wealth of experience with prisoners, simply borrowed their stories for his book. At that time, Charrière characterized 85% of his book was true. He finally returned to France, visiting Paris in conjunction with the publication of his memoir Papillon. The book sold over 1.5 million copies in France, prompting a French minister to attribute the moral decline of France to miniskirts and Papillon. In 1970, the French justice system issued a pardon to Charrière for his 1931 murder conviction. On July 29, 1973, Charrière died of throat cancer in Madrid, Spain.